I told her you were going to speak tonight.
You can't read all that.
I wonder if everyone could take their seats, please. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. If everyone will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Thanks.
Alderman Lauer,
Here.
Alderman Sage,
Here.
Alderman Malumboy,
Here.
Alderman Burgess, here. Alderman Painter,
Here.
Alderman Schmidt, here. Alderman Black,
Here.
Alderman Hallman, here. Alderman Fruin, here. Mayor Renner.
Here. Thank you very much. We have a quorum, and we're going to go ahead and start with public comment. We have a half hour from public comment, and we have more than 10 people. You have up to 3 minutes, so I wonder if you could be as expeditious as possible. I will read 3 names at a time, so please be prepared and come forward so we can get as many people to speak this evening as possible. We're going to start with Vicki Tilton, then Kevin Paxton, and Rich Buchanan. And again, you have up to 3 minutes. Vicki Tilton, Kevin Paxton, and Rich Buchanan. Vicki, thank you.
Good evening. What I want to address is the signage committee, so I kind of thought maybe I could say something after the recognition, but I'm going to go ahead. Thank you all for your job. Thank you, Mayor Renner. I am Vicki Tilton, Fox and Hunt's Hair Studio and Day Spa in the Monroe Center. Tim and I will soon be celebrating our 20th anniversary of our home and businesses being in downtown Bloomington. We have enjoyed watching the revival of downtown, although at times it has been excruciatingly slow to see progress that we felt should have happened much more quickly and with ease. Among these issues, and often at the top of our list, was signage, or lack of signage, to help people not only find downtown, but to be easily and clearly led to available parking. We have often felt that the urban myth that parking is such a horrible issue in our downtown could be proven wrong if there were just signage that could direct public to where it was available. When I was asked by Mayor Renner to serve on the signage committee, I expressed at our first meeting to Steve Rasmussen and the rest of the group that I was feeling frustration at volunteering my valuable time to attend these meetings if our recommendations were met with a thank you, a shrug, and then being ignored and put on a shelf, with so many other dusty recommendations that we've seen over the years, by so many generous volunteers giving of their time. I asked to speak this evening because my concern was not only responded to by Steve, that the City Council and staff truly wanted our input and would be willing to act on our recommendations, but I have actually seen results with the parking signs going up in a universally recognized way that I believe will make a difference in how visitors perceive downtown and the available parking. I am ecstatic with the progress this committee has made in a few short months, and I'm excited about what else we can accomplish with the support of the City Council and the staff. I'm respectfully asking that you consider this evening our recommendations that we're continuing to make and the requested dollars for fiscal year 2017 budget, so that we can expand wayfinding signs and enhance the image of Bloomington as a city that is welcoming, friendly, and has much to offer its citizens and visitors. Thank you all for the work you do volunteering your time to make the city of Bloomington a great place to live, work, and play. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, Kevin Paxton, Rich Buchanan, and then Daryl Hartwig.
And everybody. My name's Kevin Paxton. I am the business manager for the Stagehands Union, Local 193 out of Bloomington. I'm here to voice our concerns with what's going on with the Coliseum. We have been there since the inception of the Coliseum. We were involved with some of the design work that went into the building of the Coliseum, and we don't know where we're going, what's happening with there. Our Local 193 personally would like to be involved with the transition of what's going on through there. We have over 130 members in our local. We employ over 100 of those at the Coliseum throughout different shows and that. We just had an 80-person call Saturday night, so I just wanted to voice our concern about what's going on with it and what direction we're going with there. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Again, Rich Buchanan, then Daryl Hartwig, and Alton Franklin.
I'm Richard Buchanan, address 1206 East Jefferson in Bloomington. I'm going to take the liberty, Mayor, since my negotiations for more than 3 minutes, since I'm going to address 3 separate items on the agenda, I'm going to combine them all, and I'll meet the 3-minute deadline. How's that? 2 of the 3, first of all, seeing 3 significant development proposals just warmed my heart, because from 1971 to 1985, I was councilman and mayor in the city of Bloomington, and we had many of these things, but we either didn't research them right, or there's been some legislation, because as I read, spent a couple hours on them today, as I read, I kept thinking about if this was back in the 70s and 80s, there'd be so many things wrong with the portions of the ordinance and the agreements that the city taxpayers would not be protected. And I can acknowledge we ran into that. Now, we were fortunate that they didn't need the protection, but they didn't have it. And these, I especially want to mention the item 8B, which has to do with, I'm calling it front and center and the Commerce Bank. That is really tightly wrapped to protect the citizens of Bloomington. And then the other 2, A and C, frankly, are even more tightly wrapped. I've checked the sources of revenue to buy the property that I call the Mennonite property. And then I look, Colonial Plaza, what a great job. What a wonderful job. And these 3 are winners and should be approved tonight, hopefully unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, former Mayor Buchanan. Thanks. Again, Daryl Hartwig, Alton Franklin, and then Mike Rakes.
Mayor, members of the council, one of the things that becomes a problem sometimes with speakers following other speakers is that the first speaker may have already stolen most of what I was going to say. Thank you, Mr. That's not the first time, ladies and gentlemen, that's happened to me with Rich Buchanan. My name's Daryl Hartwig. I'm a longtime resident here of the city of Bloomington, and I'm here in that capacity, as well as a representative capacity with my partner, Ralph Turner. He and I own the Illinois House building on the corner of Jefferson and Center Streets in downtown Bloomington. As Rich has said, on your regular agenda this evening are these 3 resolutions that he's already alluded to. 1 to approve the old Mennonite hospital site purchase, the inducement resolution regarding the downtown hotel, the conference center and the restaurant cluster, and the 3rd being the authorization of the redevelopment agreement involving Colonial Plaza. Interestingly, I echo exactly what Rich said. Rich has been here longer than I have, but it's been a long, long time, folks, since I've seen this kind of activity in the city of Bloomington. And I don't just talk to you about the downtown. I'm talking about outside of the city, downtown area, Colonial Plaza. These are, as Rich has said, these are winners. I'm here to ask you to consider voting for these resolutions. It would be even greater if this was a unanimous vote. That's up to you folks. But these are all the kind of activities that had been going on in the city of Bloomington about 15 years ago. There's no reason at all why that can't resume. It should resume, and with your good work, it will resume. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Alton Franklin, Mike Rakes, and then Donna Bolin.
My name is Alton Franklin. I live at 508 Patterson Drive here in Bloomington, Illinois. It warms my heart, it really does, to hear folks speak with such glowing terms. I wish I could be as bright on the output, but it seems like my general task most of the time is to rain on the parade. $1.4 million. Gee, I wonder how many streets that could repave. I wonder how many century-old sewage pipes that could help to remediate. I look at the things that are being done, and it all sounds great. It really does. But, it's the kind of thing that I hear that I guess I could have heard if I went over to the airport on Sunday, because His Royal Orange rugness tells us a lot about how great it's going to be and how wonderful things are. And there's never any specifics. It's the same thing here. The only specific is we know there's $1.4 million going out. I don't see anything that speaks to where that $1.4 million is coming from. And all the way through all the things that have been going on, I hear about borrowing against future revenue. Basically mortgaging our kids and our grandkids a little bit more and a little bit more. Poor guys and gals are being nibbled to death by ducks, and in some cases they take quite a big chunk. I think we need to tend to what we got. I don't think we need to go out hunting for more things to take care of and to try to figure out a way that we're going to turn this into the wonderful land of Oz. This is Bloomington. It's real people. I have said it before, I'll say it again. It's like my grandpa told me, a place is just a place, it's people that count. And we have some of the most remarkable people that I've ever met. And coming from a guy that spent 6 years in the Corps, 4 years in the Navy, and traveled all over the world before, it's 17 years before I went into the military myself with my dad. So I think I've got a pretty good grasp on where the good folks are and where they aren't. And there's a lot of common sense things that I learned growing up that just don't seem to be reflected in the actions of this august body. I wish y'all would step back, take a look. Let us know where the hell the money's coming from. I think it's great. You want to turn this into the land of Oz? If you've got the money or you've got a place where the money's coming from, believe me, there's nobody that wants to see Bloomington shine more than I do. I truly do consider this not just the jewel of the Midwest. I believe it's the jewel, period. And I believe it needs to be treated as such, and the people who make up that jewel deserve all that much more care. Thank you.
Okay. Mike Rakes, Donna Bolin, and Rob Fazzini.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Mike Rakes. I live at 1520 North Clinton Boulevard in Bloomington. I'm here to speak in favor of 3 items on your agenda this evening. The items are listed number 8, regular agenda, A, B, and C. The purchase of the old Mennonite site would allow the city to partner with private developers to bring a significant project to the area, benefiting the entire community and spurring future growth. Approving the inducement resolution would allow the city to move forward to hear more about a private developer wanting to spend millions of dollars in our city, investing in our community. These opportunities do not come knocking all the time. Finally, approving a redevelopment agreement of Colonial Plaza is the right thing to do. We are currently seeing the benefits of this project moving forward. There are local construction workers on site with talks of hiring more local tradespeople as the project ramps up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Donna Bolin, Rob Fazzini, and then Eric Penn.
Hi, I'm Donna Bolin. I live in Ward 2. I just want to make some comments about the budget. I hear the words needs and wants a lot, and I think that those should be dispensed with because they're emotionally charged words, and rather use fiscal terminology like discretionary and non-discretionary, because I think that those are more neutral and are easily defined. And there's another thing I have a concern with, and that's the significant amount of tax dollars that are going to things like Connect Transit and economic development. The increases have gone up to 390%, and I don't see any accountability within those groups for the use of that money. The ordinance that was passed when the taxes went up said that 50% of was to go for general operation and maintenance of the city needs. It didn't say for economic development specifically. And regarding that land purchase, I don't have a problem with it, except for the fact that I don't know where it's budgeted. And in relation to the golf issue, that would the golf capital improvements is half of that amount. So the 1.4 is double the amount for capital golf improvements. And this kind of behavior actually contributes to the structural deficit. And regarding the hotel, I really wish that the statement, this won't cost any tax dollars, was not used, because it really challenges credibility, because tax dollars will be used. They already have been used with consultants and staff time. The local economy is not really driven by tourism, so I see a lot of minimum wage jobs being produced. And I would like to have you ask yourself, why did you come here? And I can guarantee that you came here because you got a good, well-paying job. And according to financial experts, success of city revitalization cannot be achieved by mega projects alone. It needs to be multifaceted with improvements that are both physical, economic basis, and social and economic conditions for the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Fazzini, Eric Penn, and then Gary Lambert.
Rob Fazzini, 5 Canterbury Court, and the very diverse Ward 8. Alton Franklin and I are both in that ward. Increasing net revenue for the city. I think we've probably all discovered it's better to do that by increasing revenue rather than decreasing expenses alone, because that tends to lower the service levels that we have. I think increasing revenue comes primarily from 2 sources. Number one, people from the outside coming here to visit, either through tourism or just through shopping. And number 2, increasing the population. There's a parallel between our downtown currently and the old College Hills Indoor Mall, which at the time we undertook the project had 62 spaces, 9 were occupied. That was changed from an indoor mall to a lifestyle mall, and it is thriving. Our downtown needs to be thriving, and I think that would help attract tourists, and new businesses would lead to more residents, which increases our population. I can assure you that Jeff Gabelhausen knows how to do this. And the reason I can assure you of that is Jeff was the president of the company that did the project. I was the banker who financed $28 million to do the project. And I'll tell you three things about College Hills Mall. Number one, it was done on time, which made the town of Normal happy, and it was done within budget, which made all the bankers happy. Number two, it was a unique financial instrument that allowed it to happen because the Cullinan Company wanted $5.5 million up front, and the town of Normal didn't. So an SSA bond, Special Service Area bond, was put in place where no money was up front, but the Cullinan Company over the 15 years is going to get $8.5 million. And the town of Normal is going to get twice that amount if we hadn't done the project. The third thing, and this is important, in the first few years, over half of the sales revenue from College Hills came from people outside of Bloomington Normal. Based on that, I would think that we'd want to revitalize downtown Bloomington and not have any money up front and just enjoy the spoils. So I recommend that you vote for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Penn, then Gary Lambert, and Joe Walden.
Eric Penn, 1016 McGregor Street, Bloomington. As a member of this community for all my life, I have 3 good daughters, and I plan on having them grow up here and stay in this community. So I think of them first and most off, and also being a member of Labor's Local 362, they're my second family. I think of them as well. As far as the construction jobs here in the community, they've been scarce. And these projects that you have approved already and hopefully to approve here in the future is going to help them survive in this community and move on and pay for things that we need to and to move forward. And I just want to say that sometimes you have to spend a little money to make money. And I want to thank you for the job that you've done so far and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Again, Gary Lambert, Joe Walden, and then Glenn Ludwig.
Good evening. I sat in on the budget meeting on Saturday. Came away with a couple of thoughts, see if they're fairly accurate. One thing I think I picked up on was that I think without exception, every department is understaffed. Everybody said they needed more. I can't challenge that, but I didn't see much in the budget to address that. We talked about resurfacing roads, big project, and other than the current bonds that are out there, the way of financing that was as bonds are paid off, we are going to reissue new bonds to pay for those, which says we're never going to get out of debt. We're not. Sewer and stormwater, over a period of time, around 10 years, the average fee for those services are going to go from roughly $13 a month to something over $25 a month, close to doubling over that 10-year period. I didn't hear any talk about the garbage fees. I suppose that's still in the works. Those 2 fees, garbage and water, they continue to be hitting, back that up, they are among the more regressive taxes that we impose. A couple of figures here I run across. McLean County median income adjusted for inflation has declined from $67,000 in the year 2000 to $60,000 in 2014. That's a decrease of 11%. In Illinois, as of October of last year, 15.8% were on food stamps. Early March, Panagraph stated that 56% of District 87 students were considered as living in poverty. Those are people that you're raising taxes on. The United Way in 2014 raised $4.2 million, setting a goal of an increase of 8% for 2015. They actually raised $3.5 million. That's a 16% decrease. The concern I have, you continue to nickel and dime, don't have to repeat them, all these little taxes, and you're truly squeezing the taxpayer. Thank you.
Joe Walden, Glenn Ludwig, and Patricia Martin.
Council. Joe Walden, 302 Hillside. I have 6 studies in my hand, 5 against tax increment financing or redevelopment monies, 1 for by the city of Schaumburg because they were wanting one, and even they had some cautionary remarks about it. So let's talk about redevelopment and what it's used for. Redevelopment money or tax increment financing really has 3 agendas, and it's all politics. The first agenda is to take money from existing areas. I'm going to read this. It speaks better than I do. First, city managers view school districts, fire districts, and other agencies funded out of property taxes as rivals for the limited tax dollars paid by the public. TIF offers cities an easy way to capture a larger share of these funds from their rivals. For example, if a city is short of funds for maintaining streets, it can create a TIF district and use TIF revenues for street maintenance in that area alone, leaving the rest of the city's street maintenance budget available with a smaller budget. Isn't that what we would be doing? If we have a TIF and we have monies going into that particular area, aren't we reducing the amount of money that we can use overall? If you make TIF of the old Mennonite, the gas station down there, every time that you raise taxes one penny, that money from that gas station goes into that tax increment financing district, not into the general revenue. So you have a base for, yeah, you do. Yep, I disagree. Because that 1 cent increase will stay within that tax increment financing district. Second, elected officials use TIF to engage in crony capitalism, winners and losers. That is to provide tax subsidies to favor developers. This reduces the risk to developers who naturally respond by making campaign contributions to the officials when they run for re-elections. Third, urban planners use TIF to practice social engineering, promoting development that may be less marketable, but that follows the latest urban planning fads. Ironically, the current fad is high-density, mixed-use developments. What are we looking at? Downtown hotel, mixed use, the fad, we go to Champaign, we find out one they did down there. So it's a competition for dollars, crony capitalism. It's basically picking winners and losers, which is what you said, Mayor, with the old Mennonite. You didn't want just anybody in there, remember? Last comment. There's little evidence that city governments are better than private developers at determining the type and location of new development that cities need, and plenty of evidence that they're not as good. So you're going to vote for it. Think about it. We're going forward. TIFs, 7 to 30 years. That's 7 to 30 years of reducing taxes for the general population, the general fund, and then you're picking winners and losers for the next 7 to 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn Ludwig and Patricia Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, for giving me this opportunity. I'm Glenn Ludwig. I'm from the south portion of the one community currently known as Bloomington. Now, not all of you get the drift of what I'm talking about, mostly you people back there, because you didn't get a copy of something I sent to the council here a while back. I'm here on a totally different subject, but I still think it fits. Maybe with tonight, but it's kind of about the extra responsibility that elected leaders find themselves having to accommodate. By the way, I heard read some really good things about your session on Saturday, and I'm sorry I didn't make it. I want to particularly point out the comments that were in the panagraph that Mr. Hale made about the need to look out when you're doing the budgeting, look out 3, 4, 5 years, because that's the way we need to do things in times like this. And I thank Mr. Hale for his efforts and his staff's efforts, because I think that we've got a good leadership team. Yesterday, I went to the bookstore. I didn't go out to the other little event in town, just went to the boring bookstore. And I found a book on the shelf that I bought and started to read. And the book caught my eye because it said, the title of the book was On, E-N, that is, Informed. And the premise, from what I've read so far in that book of the author, was that most voters are uninformed. I know I'm an uninformed voter in many ways because I don't study a lot on everybody, but I'm uninformed, so I'm not picking on anybody that I don't fit, slot that I don't fit into. Holy smokes. Anyway, after looking at that book and looking at it a little bit, I think that there's two things that are really, really important that don't always get done, and that is the fact that leaders don't realize, particularly elected leaders, that they need to spend a lot of time informing and teaching and communicating with the people that elected them. And if you listen too much to the people that elected you who are uninformed to some degree or another, you're not going to make as good decisions as you're capable of making. So with that, I'll just sit down because my time's gone.
Thank you. Patricia Martin, last but not least.
Okay, thank you. I've been rereading the Mental Health Action Plan and continue to be impressed by the material and names that are included. However, there are still questions that I would like to have answered. They include the effects the plan could have on the elderly, not only in private homes and nursing homes, but in public facilities that they frequent. Namely, are the people running such facilities capable both intellectually and emotionally of handling difficult situations that might arise, and how can we determine this? For the abuse of the elderly continues to be a worldwide issue. What can we do to help? We must, I believe, continue to tighten and implement hiring procedures, and here we can draw again on the police for suggestions and support, for they have detailed procedures that they follow to ensure that their applicants are well equipped for the job. This includes not only background checks, but oral interviews before a panel, physical exams, and moreover, psychological exams and lie detector tests. Indeed, one officer that I met at a recent coffee gathering has a degree in psychology from the University of Illinois, and I'm much impressed by that. Some of these procedures could and should be interpolated into our hiring programs in other public facilities, especially those dealing with people of disparate ages. For as many of us already know, such facilities are not always safe places. And we need astute administrations that can both acknowledge and deal with this and not pretend that it doesn't exist. It's also up to all of you to make sure that this occurs, for you are elected to take care both of the city's institutions and the people who live here, and to be aware of our needs and fears and develop procedures that can protect us, especially those of us who are particularly vulnerable. Many of you are also older citizens yourselves and should be proud of this, which should give you an additional impetus to do this. Also, the city of Bloomington is an entity unto itself, though part of a county of towns and villages. While we should cooperate with our neighbors, we must also make our own decisions as to what is best for us. Finally, I spoke to both Laura Beavers of the Health Department and Tom Barr of the Center for Human Services this morning. Both highly recommend the mental health first aid programs sponsored by a number of community organizations as a means of identifying the signs and signals of mental illness. These programs last throughout the entire year, and this is another way we can learn how to help each other. And I have a flyer that they are passing out about the program, which I hope all of you will read and take into consideration. And I plan to attend one of them myself. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. We're going to go ahead and move on to recognitions and appointments. Just to clarify for everyone, in public comment, we don't respond. If you do want responses directly and you want to sit down and talk to us, we have a regular mayor's open house from 4:30 to 5:30. We had it last Friday before a regular Monday city council meeting. You don't have to make an appointment. You can come by, get sometimes answers in real time. Again, here it's your opportunity to say whatever you want, and we don't go back and forth. But if you want to get some back and forth, please come to an open house. Under recognitions and appointments, we have a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, and I think I want to go ahead and read this. Patty Lynn, would you please come forward? Not too many places in Illinois get this, right? The Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting presented to the City of Bloomington, Illinois for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending April 30th, 2015. And congratulations, Patty Lynn.
Just quickly, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank all of the finance staff, but in particular Paulette Hurd. She's working late in her office right now and was too shy to come out and take credit for this award. We'd be lost without her. We do receive a clean opinion every year, and I'm just so thankful for the staff that we have. Thank you.
You could drag her out.
I tried. I tried.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Congratulations. Next, we're going to move a presentation by the Signage Committee. Steve Rasmussen, you have a few minutes here that you want to come forward.
Thank you very much, Mayor and members of the City Council. I just wanted to point out that we have here the Downtown Bloomington Strategy, much of which was incorporated into the comprehensive plan which you adopted. One important part of that is the transportation component, and a major issue of that is installing coordinated wayfinding signage. And what I'd like to do is just read the first paragraph of that for you. And what it says is that wayfinding signage is signing installed in the public right-of-way that provide directions or courtesy information intended to assist the public in navigation. Wayfinding signage should be installed to direct visitors to such downtown amenities as public parking garages, shopping areas, the U.S. Cellular Coliseum, Bloomington Center for the Performing Arts, the Law and Justice Center, City Hall, and the McLean County Museum of History. Last year you appointed a committee to help move forward with installing such signage, and we're here tonight to give you an annual report on the progress that they have made. To do that, I have here the co-chairs of that committee, who I'm like to introduce now, and then they will introduce the members of their committee. Those co-chairs are Tricia Stiller and Russell Francois.
Good evening. Thank you, Steve, for that. I'm Tricia Stiller, Executive Director of the Downtown Bloomington Association.
Russell Francois, 15864 East, 910 North Road, Bloomington.
And we'd like to take a moment again to thank you for your time and to acknowledge the Signage Committee, who is pretty much all present and accounted for. I'd like to ask them to stand and be recognized, please. Members of the Signage Committee. And those folks, of course, are Vicki Tilton, Beth Wisman, Tom Jones from Bloomington Normal Association of Realtors, Dave Park, and Crystal Howard. So thanks, guys, for being here. So good evening. Again, we appreciate the opportunity to update you on the activity thus far of the Downtown Signage Committee. As you recall, and Steve just mentioned, we were convened last spring to serve a period of 6 months to explore the ways that we can improve signage throughout the city's downtown. We've been meeting twice a month and have had a total of 15 meetings to date. Russell, you're supposed to be pushing the buttons here, buddy.
I knew there was something for me to do, Chris.
So,
I have to find the buttons.
there you go. Okay.
Down.
So we
I'm
have...
an
architect. There we go. Okay, so we've been meeting twice a month. We've had a total of 15 meetings to date. We assessed our current signage and began to thoughtfully consider areas in need of improvement. We've identified short-term, intermediate, and long-range goals and have worked to address those. Our immediate action was to adorn all 3 of our city parking decks with the universally recognized parking symbol, the white background with the blue P in a circle. The symbol was accompanied by directional arrows. Our purpose in this was to enhance downtown amenities, to make the downtown experience more user-friendly, to aid our international visitors, and to ensure public safety. We were, of course, motivated by the influx of visitors to our area. Contrary to popular belief, we definitely do enjoy quite a bit of tourism, and proof is in the pudding. The Cruisin' with Lincoln on 66 Visitor Center to date, not quite a full year of operations, have welcomed 15,449 people in not quite a year. And of those who signed the guest registry, there were 31 countries, 44 states, and 122 Illinois communities outside of McLean County who have been spending time in our downtown.
And 14,000 of them sat on the bench with Lincoln. I watch it from my office, and I'm very surprised at how simply moving a monument that was given by Judy Markowitz to the city to a different location, how it attracts wonderful friends for Mr. Lincoln all night long. So it's doing its job.
He is definitely a selfie superstar.
Absolutely.
So in thinking from, go ahead, yeah. So there's kind of an example of the parking decks if you haven't noticed them already. We're really proud of that. So in thinking from a new guest perspective, we asked ourselves, how would someone know how to find our library? That downtown destination boasts an average of 30,000 guests per month. What about our McLean County Arts Center, or a place to eat, a place to shop? And our Bloomington Center for Performing Arts. In 2015, their 525 different events resulted in 693 people who have chosen to come to Bloomington and spend time in our downtown. As a committee, our time to serve has expired, so we respectfully request the ability to continue to serve and find ways to improve our city. And we'd like to do that for 1 year. In that time, we'd like to utilize funds to engage the services of a professional signage designer who can assist us in coordinating our efforts. We would work to coordinate with Uptown Normal's wayfinding in order to promote a connected Twin Cities. And with the designer's guidance, create a pilot program that can be expanded to also include directional signage throughout the city and from all points that lead people in. We would implement a request for qualifications and the subsequent request for proposal and work as a committee to select the best candidate with which to work. Russell, do you have anything to add?
I've done such a fine job with the buttons. And the only reason they gave me that job is because they're afraid that as a Southerner I talk long and slowly. I will not do that. But instead, I want to remind you of my personal experience downtown Bloomington. I'm from Eunice, Louisiana, moved up here on September 15th, 1977. My wife, one daughter, a month old, and came to work downtown within that first week, could not afford to not work more than 1 week. So came to work and worked for the firm Hilfinger Asbury Cofoy Dables, an old firm in town, proud history, today is known as Shive Hattery. I can tell you whenever I arrived in town, I remembered how such a proud city seemed as though that downtown did not reflect all of the pride. And what I can tell you is that by 1984, 7 years later, Brown Building had problems. We lost the East Block, just across the street from History Museum, and a tax increment financing district was implemented. And I know today that as you consider additional expenditures, it seems, my God, what are we talking about? But I can tell you one thing, that driving down yesterday morning very early, there are 2 empty spaces downtown right now. And that is in high contrast to what it was in 1984. There's Chocolatier and, what is the other one you told me?
The former, the 301 North Main Plaza.
301 North Main. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Front and Center Building.
Right.
But I just remarked at how I believe that the difficult work has really been achieved In 1994, the city gave me through TIF $78,100. I paid my building off after spending another $300,000. I paid my building off last month. Was so happy to walk into Commerce Bank across the street. And it has been rented and has been lived in. There's been 1 month when no one has rented the third floor apartment. The apartment rents for $1,000 a month. I was paying $270 of taxes on that building before we put money into it. Now we're close to $7,000, $8,000. So I can say that I really believe that, yes, we're talking about wayfinding and how important that is as an element to demonstrate how proud we are of the downtown area. I think it adds safety to this area. But very, very importantly, I think it is a small piece. We have done the heavy lifting. Most of the storefronts at the first floor are occupied. And then we've moved up to those second and third floor residential areas. And we've begun occupying those, and they're almost filled. What a delight to think that Lincoln parking lot, wherever that is, right over there. When I was in town, when I moved to town, it was one at-grade parking site. Now there's 4 floors, and more people are downtown. And there aren't as many pigeons flying into windows with drapes hanging out. So I guess we've come such a wonderful long way. I'm very proud to be a long-term person downtown Bloomington. I look forward to more progress. There are seasons for everything, but I think this is a season for us to really move on. I'm excited about our future downtown Bloomington. Thank you all so much for what it is you do. And I'm very impressed this evening with what I call the French vive la différence. We can meet together and have our differences, and look how sane we all appear. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, that's going to be a hard act to follow. Next, we go to some reappointments. Reappointment of Mark Fetzer to the Property Maintenance Review Board. Mark, are you here to stand, to be recognized? Okay. Reappointment, I know she's here, Patty Lynn Silva to the Police Pension Board. And appointment of Sene Ferrier to the Bloomington Normal Sister City Committee for Japan. Thank you very much. Again, these are reappointments. These are people who have served us in the past and are agreeing to continue to serve our community. So we are very much appreciative of that. Next, we have recognition of the City of Bloomington by the American Heart Association for promoting employee health and fitness. Nicole, come on down.
And I'm the act that gets to follow that, so I apologize. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm very pleased to be here this evening to let you know that the City of Bloomington, as an employer, has been recognized as a fit-friendly work site with the American Heart Association, and we are at the platinum level designation. A representative from the American Heart Association was not able to be here this evening, so if you will bear with me, I will read her script to recognize those efforts. So it is truly an honor this evening to announce that the City of Bloomington has been recognized as a fit-friendly worksite. For those of you not familiar with the Fit-Friendly Worksite Recognition Program, it is a level of accomplishment on behalf of the American Heart Association's My Heart, My Life initiative. It is intended to be a catalyst for positive change in the workplace across America and right here in Bloomington. It recognizes work sites for making the health and wellness of their employees a priority. Our worksite has received the Platinum Award from the American Heart Association, which is, you have to know, the highest level of designation for the 6th consecutive year. I didn't even realize that. 6 years in a row that we've been recognized with the Platinum Level Award. So as a Platinum Level worksite, we have demonstrated 2 things. One, that we embrace at least 9 of the criteria as outlined by the American Heart Association in the areas of physical activity, nutrition, and a workplace wellness culture. In addition, we have demonstrated specific, quantifiable, and measurable outcomes related to workplace wellness. So in other words, we've got the data to back it up. We're not just saying that we're doing it. So as a Platinum Fit-Friendly worksite, the City of Bloomington has been acknowledged as trailblazers who have adopted the spirit of the initiative and have the vision to continue to improve the health and wellness of our employees and the work site. And as Patty Lynn mentioned with her staff, my staff, Tina Swanson, is the one that's really spearheaded this. She's our wellness coordinator, championship of the wellness initiative, and was too humble to come tonight to accept the recognition as well. So on her behalf, I would just like to thank you all and recognize her for all of her efforts as well.
Great. Well, congratulations, Nicole.
Thank you.
Move right along to our consent agenda. And any items that anyone from the council would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Moved by Alderwoman Schmidt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Painter. Alderman Fruin?
Anybody want to withdraw anything? No?
No.
Okay. Thank you. With regard to both the consent and regular agenda, I have not received any monies or financial benefits from any of the individuals or organizations referenced in these agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Excuse me. Let me start it. Okay. The motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. We move right along to our regular agenda, item 8A. And I'm going to turn this over to our city manager and Austin Grammer, who are going to present information on the acquisition of the Electrolux site. Thank you.
Mayor and council, tonight we have a unique and a special opportunity to make a strategic property purchase on the north end of our Main Street corridor, and especially along what previously, several years ago, was labeled our Main Street corridor, and the master plan was adopted specifically for the purpose of trying to enhance and to plan for what our vision was for the entire stretch of US 51 from Bloomington all the way through to Normal. Over the last several months, we have had numerous meetings with representatives of Kirk Holdings LLC, and I specifically want to extend my appreciation to them for their willingness to consider a sale of this property to the city of Bloomington on some very, I believe, special terms. And I think in credit to Tom Kirk, his father and other family members, they realize that there is opportunities, if we're so interested, to take one piece of property that might otherwise be subdivided, split up, but if it was remain intact and maybe combined with, in this case, property at Illinois Wesleyan University, who is willing to be a partner with the city to really create something that would be much greater, add more value, and be kind of a unique mixed-use development anchoring the north end of downtown. Because of the willingness of the Kirks, we've entered into and drafted a purchase agreement, which we're bringing to you tonight. That agreement would allow the city to acquire this property, not for the purpose of long-term ownership, but to be a temporary holder. And once again, in working with our partner, Illinois Wesleyan University, hold this property until such time as we can be able to select the right developer who will come in and make a substantial investment on a mixed-use development. As you know, there is some parties we've talked to in the past. There could be others in the future. But what we definitely do believe is this is a very strategic acquisition that could ultimately, upon its sale and development of the property, would significantly enhance the assessed valuation of property, which at this case, and with the demolition of the property, goes back to a very low amount. I'd like to turn to Austin and just to highlight a few of the basic terms and conditions of this agreement, and then we'll turn it back to you, Mayor, and the City Council with our recommendation that you adopt the resolution approving this contract and allowing city staff to proceed with all the appropriate and very important due diligence activities prior to any closing on this property. Austin Grammer.
Yes, thank you, City Manager Hales. As you see in the agreement that's included in your packet tonight, the agreed-upon purchase price is $1.4 million for the property that's highlighted on the screen. That price was negotiated between the city and the Kirk family that owns the property, and we believe that an appraisal will support that price. However, should it not, the city would have the option to either renegotiate or walk away from the deal if we see that it is not supported by an independent appraisal. An appraisal has already been ordered and is well underway. The city will also undertake an environmental assessment to determine if there are any contaminants or what have you that are on the site that would somehow impact the site's value or the potential redevelopment of that. It's a very similar process of what we went through with the Sugar Creek packing plant. We'll bring in a very competent engineer that will be able to provide a full report for your review. And again, should there be something found that determines that you are not interested in the site or makes the site not appealing due to excessive expense to make any type of cleanup, again, there would be opportunity for renegotiation or the city could walk away from the deal. There are a few other just general terms, but the main one, though, is the completion of the demolition and everything, and the timeline for the city to do its due diligence hinges upon the completion of the demolition project, and the Kirks have assured us that the demolition will be substantially complete or completely complete by April 15th of this year. Again, I'd like to echo City Manager Hale's comments of thanks to the Kirk family. They certainly realize that this site has tremendous potential. However, it is not their business model to hold out for the highest potential that the city may wish. And so by the city stepping in and acquiring this property, we can potentially hold it for as long as is necessary to see the best and highest use for this property that would ultimately be your decision as the council to make. So,
okay. Questions? Okay. Well, if you stay handy, we appreciate it. Before we go forward, is there a motion to approve and a second for discussion?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Howman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Burgess. Okay. Now, discussion, comments. Alderwoman Burgess.
Well, I think as you can infer from my second, I fully support this resolution and moving forward with the purchase of the property. I did want to note while we're discussing it, and although it's not up for decision tonight, there is the intent set forth in the memo to move forward on establishing a TIF district. And at this point in time, I just want to raise the issue that I do not support locking ourselves into that TIF process as of yet. We do not have a potential project at play, and I think it would be better moving forward that we keep our options open because we have a lot of economic development tools that are available to us. I'm not saying that I would not ultimately support a TIF, but I believe we need to go further down the process before we can figure out if that's really what is essential to make development of this property necessary. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Black and then Milwaukee.
Thank you. Thank you, Austin. So I have a somewhat unique perspective on this property because I wake up every morning and I have to look at it. I live right across the street there, and I've been very excited to see the progress. I wish it was a little faster, and I know Tom can attest. I send some things over to him every so often in the My Bloomington app, which is great for reporting those types of issues. So I'm excited to see that this moving forward. I hear people every so often, talk about a lot of things, and one of the most interesting parts about being the alderman is that I'll hear widely different perspectives on the role of government, and how we spend our money, and I think that's a good, healthy discussion to have. And part of that is that people will ask us, what are you going to do about this property? They think we have some sort of inside skinny on some things. What's going to happen there? I think it should be this. I would love to see a community center there. I think it should, let the free market decide. there's a wide range of options that one can have. But for me, right across the street from there, I think was a missed opportunity. There's a car wash like 200 feet from another car wash. And that may have been what the free market determined should go there, and I see people coming and going, but is that really the best use of our space in such a key real estate area and such a prime location? And from where I sit, it's important that we maximize our potential for investments in the future. And when it comes to investments, people will say, well, this could fix X amount of roads, or this could do this amount of sewers, or this could take care of the curbs. And the fact is that this council has spent more money on resurfacing streets, funding infrastructure than councils before. I mean, there were years where $0 were spent towards that. This council has been committed to and continue to fund those things. And a couple months back, we had a retreat where we talked about what our priorities were as a council, and number one on that list was economic development. This is what economic development looks like. You got to put your money where your mouth is, and this is an example of where we can see what we can do here to get the best perspective, get the best investment for the taxpayer dollars, as opposed to just watching it turn into, say, storage or something. I don't think that's the best use of that space, and I think we can really maximize this for our community. Thank you.
Just on that, before I turn to Alderman Wambwe, obviously it's a critical property, not just on Route 66 and our Main Street corridor, but right near our oldest park, Franklin Park. And if we were to have something, whether it's storage or a Jiffy Lube, communities don't really make progress forward if they don't plan and think strategically. The free market, there is no model of any city that grows that just sits back and says, we're not going to plan, we're not going to do anything, go ahead and let the free market do it.
I think Somalia does, and I don't want to be like
Somalia? Oh, okay. Alderman Miller-Wambwe.
Okay, thank you. Earlier, David, City Manager Hales, there were some references to how this would be paid for. Could you address that?
Yes, there's multiple options that we will use and ultimately come back to the council to recommend how to pay for it. We're certainly several months away before any potential closing, but the city has, we're looking at some temporary borrowing from banks or other financial institutions, maybe for a 5-year, 8-year time period that could allow us on an annual basis keep down our actual cash outlay, and pay this down like a mortgage. And certainly before any expiration of that particular debt service schedule, we more likely would have a party willing to buy the property from the city. There's also options to look at incorporating the purchase price of this property into a possible bond associated with infrastructure, where we would pledge the general full faith and credit of the city. There could be an even longer period of time. Or in maybe the last scenario, and I think maybe the last thing we'd want to consider is to look into the city's general fund balance as a means of making a purchase now with reimbursement at the time of future sale of the property. So we'd like a little bit more time to evaluate those three options, come back, give you a final recommendation a little later as we continue through the due diligence process and actually make sure that all those terms and conditions can be met and adhered to by the seller prior to any escrow and closing on the property.
Alderman Fruin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to take the liberty of maybe enlarging the conversation a little bit and not only talking about this one particular item, but maybe all three of these development ideas, so I don't have to repeat myself on each agenda item. But I hope my voting track record reflects a real pro-growth, economic development, managed growth, and that's downtown, that's west side, that's east side. So I hope my track record will indicate where I've been. But I will say that when we look, and here's my point on these, when you look at these individually, each one of them is a great project, each one of them, and be very easy to vote yes on each one of them. And here's where I want to try to enlarge this a little bit, because tonight we're talking about 3 projects, and I'm not going to be able to support all 3 of them. That challenges me, because I think each one of them individually is. But I got thinking about what's not being discussed tonight, and that's the library, that's the South Campus. We had a master facility plan recently that we all reviewed that talks about some of our facilities that need to be updated, our fire stations, a new fire station in the northeast quadrant that we've talked about for a long time, a public service building back here. We have a lot of existing capital projects that are on the table that we're going to be talking about during another Monday session. Mental health initiative that we've just got on board with, Connect Transit. Tonight we talked earlier about Fox Creek Road. We're talking about Hamilton Road. So the list goes on and on and on. We can all fill that up, so I won't do that here tonight. But that's a challenge we have. I think Scott talked about challenges we have. And when you look at these one at a time, they look a lot more supportive, if you will, if that's the right word. But we got to keep this all in perspective, because I don't see too many people coming to the microphone in public comment asking us to raise their taxes, raise fees, or to go ahead and increase bond debt. And so we've got to balance this whole thing of economic development and our tax situation. Kind of on a side, it's interesting, we're a different council at a different time, but it wasn't too long ago that we denied Gailey Eye Clinic their intention to expand to the south across Scott Street, and different council, different time, but we denied that opportunity. So regardless of what we do tonight, I think some people that have that history might be saying, it seems like you're very contradictory in those two votes. So I just want to say that I'm very pro-growth, managed growth, smart growth, but we can't do everything that is on our plate, and we've got to start prioritizing what we are going to do. And regardless of how we vote on all these tonight, I think it's important that we understand more than the yes and no, because I'll use this one particular situation, and what's unique to me, Scott, is I was born in that hospital, Mennonite Hospital, so I know other people in the room probably have been too. But somebody could take the perspective of, rather than the city taking this opportunity on, if we don't do it, is somebody else going to do it? And the answer is yes. And the question becomes, do we want to control that? Do we want to manage it? Do we want to package it? Do we have that ability, as opposed to a private developer doing it? So that's a challenge that we have. So I just want to say that in general terms, that we've got to look at the big picture and not look at any one Monday night at a time, because we have a lot of Monday nights like this one. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Lauer.
I agree with much of what Alderman Fruin just reiterated. I am not going to vote yes on this. I'm going to vote no, and I will tell you why. We can control what is built there. We don't have to have a car wash or a Jiffy Lube, and that is known as zoning, and proper zoning can eliminate those. Mr. Kirk took it upon himself to make a land deal and finally raise the building, which has been kind of an eyesore for a little while. But we have to recognize the big picture here. We're in the middle of a recession. Things aren't necessarily getting better just yet. And I'm sure at some point they will. I know Bloomington is a great place, and we're used to pulling our boots on by the straps. I've been here and done that. I know Mr. Fruin and Mr. Sage have done that as well. However, too much government intervention many times retards the open market, the free market. I think if the property had been raised and had sat there for a number of years, and no one had done anything with it, maybe we should be having that discussion now. But we haven't even let the dust settle yet. I feel that we're probably, and I'm not a smart growth person, and you can look it up. Smart growth typically fails, especially in a down economy. Smart growth is not necessarily smart. So pushing this form-based code, mixed-use building, multiple levels, and something that is extremely expensive to maintain is not something that I'm going to get behind. We've got a number of parking decks that we're currently struggling to maintain, and if that's what's going to be included here, I can't support it, especially with public tax dollars. We've, through our zoning, we can maintain what needs to go there, and we've done that in the city of Bloomington for generations. And that's the proper use of government. Purchasing property when we have so many other things on the table, we just raised taxes a number of times, actually. And yes, we have a balanced budget. It looks good for the next 3 years, but we've got challenges ahead. We have many, many infrastructure things that we should be spending money on. Those are primary needs of the citizen and the city. I'm here to tell you that I want to concentrate on those. Yes, we have done that, and we have been somewhat aggressive, Scott, but we need to continue to do that, and we need to do that without borrowing more money. We need to look to the future and try to be responsible. And that includes eventually paying things down. A revolving line of credit is not where I want to go. This is not what I think we should be doing at the current time. Thank you.
Okay. Just to clarify, another perspective on it is one of the ways that you ensure that future mayors and councils don't have to raise taxes and fees is by growing the local economy and taking advantage and leveraging your assets. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. If there isn't anything else, if everyone else will vote then, and I vote is in favor of the resolution as presented. Nay is in opposition, of course. The motion carries 7-2. There are 2 nays to announce, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Lauer and Alderman Freund.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Thank you very much, Austin. You may want to stick around. Huh?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of action on economic development tonight. Item 8B, consideration of approving a resolution to authorize preliminary action known as an inducement resolution in connection with the redevelopment of the Commerce Bank front and center buildings in downtown Bloomington to a hotel conference center and a restaurant cluster. And you have a few minutes, yourself and Mr. Hales. Did you?
Yes, Mr. Hales.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor and Council, tonight we're recommending that you approve a resolution to authorize some preliminary action plan known as resolution in connection with the redevelopment of the Commerce Bank and Front and Center buildings in downtown Bloomington into a hotel, conference center, and restaurant cluster. As has been indicated both in the staff backup report but also on the radio, this particular resolution doesn't commit you really to anything. It doesn't say that you're ready to vote on any kind of public-private partnership, but what you do say is that you are in agreement that the concept plan, which has been brought forward by Mr. Jeff Gabelhausen and his particular individuals that are working with him, is something that you see as having very good value, good interest, as something you want to see go forward, and that ultimately, if certain terms and conditions are complied with, which primarily is a very complete development proposal, together with a very complete development team, with the track record, you would give that ultimate development project serious consideration, including public-private partnership. You might recall that back on February 16th, we had a committee of the whole meeting. S.B. Friedman made it known that the conceptual project put forward by Mr. Gabelhausen could be financially feasible with limited municipal assistance. But really, to go further, there needed to be that complete development team and very specific detailed information submitted. We do believe that it is very worthwhile, and we strongly support as staff that you adopt this resolution so that Mr. Gabelhausen can proceed with putting together his development team for additional detailed analysis. I think with that, I'd like to turn back, Mayor, to you and the council. We feel this is a very appropriate next step, and I think as we've all seen, the potential concept plan has a potential to have a very transformative impact in the entire downtown area, especially that area in the southern part of the city. So again, we'd like to turn it back to you for the council consideration of adoption of this resolution.
And just to clarify a little bit in terms of process, I believe, excuse me, SB Friedman had suggested, and I think you and I and the council talked a little bit about this, that once if the council approves this, and we have something that's a real tangible proposal and details, that we would also then have that unveiled and have a very broad, open public meeting at some point in the future.
True, yeah,
I
very
just
much
wanted to
so.
clarify that for people in the audience,
And-
and I think the council recognizes that, but just so that, because I know many people came to speak about that this evening.
And I think we all just got to keep in mind, we're not there yet. We do not have that definitive, final development plan with all the detailed information, and it could be several months before we're to that point. But this also helps ensure that some of the expenses being incurred by the developer could be subject to reimbursement, when and if a tax increment financing district is approved.
And then again, once we would have that, then we would have the unveiling, et cetera. Alderwoman Schmidt.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Oh,
if we're
please,
there.
thank you.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the inducement resolution as presented to us.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Painter. Okay, discussion, comments. Starting with Alderman Sage.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of comments, one reiterating something that was just said, but again, I want to make sure that I'm being as clear as I can. I still have a number of reservations and concerns about the project. And so I am going to support the resolution, but I want to, again, just kind of be open and transparent and say, but that does not necessarily mean if and when we get to a point on a final vote that I'll be supporting that, because again, there are some key questions to be answered. It has to do with risk, risk to the taxpayers. The other question is more specific. We have kind of a time certain date in here of May 31st, 2016. And I am assuming, Austin, that is a date that's been agreed to by Mr. Gablehausen and his team. And here's why I'm asking that, because I've observed slippage previously with some of the other presentations related to this project. And I want to make sure that we're making it clear right now that that's a date certain. And so part of that is a question that suggests that the developer and his team are all bought in on that date. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? Alderman Fruin, Black, and Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor. I was getting ready to apologize for missing the February 16th date, but I don't think I'm going to. I was celebrating my 42nd wedding anniversary that night. Out of town, had a nice dinner, so that's the reason for my absence, if anybody's concerned. Sometimes you miss a meeting and everybody asks, what's going on, but I think I've got a pretty good track record. Anyway, I'll look forward to those minutes when those are done. Those aren't done quite yet. So I don't know if this question is appropriate tonight. If it's not, then tell me when it might be answered. But several months ago, one of the issues we talked about was potential environmental issues, given the businesses that have surrounded that block. So have we addressed environmental yet, or are we going to address it this spring?
Austin, yeah, I believe so. Austin, you want to clarify that?
Well, I believe that was when we were potentially considering the city acquiring this property, since that is not part of what we're considering tonight, and that the property would continue to be privately owned. That would be the ultimate responsibility of the future developer that would own the property. And so if by way of that developer going through the process of determining if it's a feasible investment, and they were to do an environmental study and determine that there was environmental contamination that needed to be remediated, that would be incorporated into their redevelopment budget and would require additional either investment on their behalf, or perhaps might increase the potential need for municipal assistance in order to make the project feasible to overcome any remediation. Does that address your question?
No. And I apologize that I don't know if that was discussed in February 16th or not, but yeah, I'm pleased with your answer. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Black, Schmidt, and Lauer.
Thank you. Thank you, Austin. I know there's been a lot of work put into this thus far, and I think that these types of resolutions are really important to show where the majority of the council is and giving staff clear direction as to where we want to spend our time and resources. And, I've seen a lot of these things come up in my tenure here, which is not as long as others, but it's stuff like this to me, a resolution where we're being very clear and setting a process forward so the public can see all the touch points and make this a very fact-based discussion is really key for me. I actually want to applaud Mr. Gablehausen for having a public meeting. I unfortunately was not able to attend that to answer the public's questions, and from what I heard, it was sparsely attended, but a good conversation. And so I think what will help as we move forward is continue to make this a fact-based discussion. And that has a number of touch points with the public to get their feedback, to get their thoughts and concerns on the table, and creating, as Alderman Sage has, that line of sight, for the finances. But we've really reached a point here where we've committed staff time and energy very heavily to this project, and it's important that the council show a very public way that this is something that we want to continue research and moving forward. And I wanted to also note that we received a letter on Friday from Crystal Howard over at the CVB pointing out some numbers of what this looks like, some of the conventions and bids that we've gone for that we haven't received for various reasons. And it isn't a guarantee that we would have gotten them had such a project been in place, but let's make ourselves competitive. And to me, projects like this are paying for our firefighters of the future. They're paying for our police officers, and this is future tax revenue that we'll be getting. And it's a wise investment. And I recently had the opportunity to go out to Champaign-Urbana, and downtown Champaign has the hotel very similar to the project that we're talking about, and it was really great experience, really great downtown, and it really is an interesting model that we can look to. So, and I looked at my bill, and I think I spent like $30 on taxes just alone, which for one night that's not too bad, but that's money that they would not have had otherwise, and I don't live there, and this is something that I think the taxpayers will get a good value of, and I'm very excited to see this project moving forward and creating that line of sight, and look forward to more public discussions. Thank you.
Thanks. And actually, Alderman Fruin and Howman and I, of course, went to see Deb Finan, the mayor of Champaign, and they're actually going with a second hotel, I think a $100 million one, a second, because it was, Alderwoman Schmidt and Lauer.
Yes, first of all, I have to say that Russell's comments reminded me of something that Greg Coos often talks about, where the downtown used to have more pigeons than people. And and my eyes tell me all the time that the downtown is thriving, but now we heard some numbers this evening that really underscore that. I am very excited about the future of downtown Bloomington, and I think we're at a tipping point right now, and this is a great opportunity for us to move ahead with this. And I do continue to hear supportive comments from people who have themselves invested their own dollars in downtown, and who I think see this as a tipping point as well. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to Mr. Hales for bringing SB Friedman along. I think his firm, along with Kathy Orr, are really providing us with the information that we need to make very strong assessment of what our risk ratio ought to be, and really helping us develop a very good contract, and I appreciate that. So thank you for doing that.
Okay. Alderman Lauer.
Okay, well, once again, I don't think our priorities are in line here. I think we're actually violating some of our goals. I'm not sure this is going to help to grow the local economy at the current time. This project on its own, in a good economy, very well could. Doesn't mean I would even support it at that point necessarily, but I don't think that we're at the proper time to be investing the citizens' money and time and effort of our staff in an area like this. We should be concentrating on our core needs as a city, and that would include very fundamental things such as public safety and infrastructure in terms of our plumbing, our streets, our sewers, and the things that we actually have to grow. Keeping the cost down to developers that might get involved from within and from without. And that's really economic development. When you provide an environment that folks actually bring private dollars in here and are assured that they can make money, that's what I would envision in terms of true economic development. We want to attract dollars from the private sector, and we shouldn't have to have all these inducements and gifts from the public sector to get somebody to come in here. Yes, downtown is doing well. I'm glad it's doing well. And I think there is a way for that to do better, but not with public dollars. If it requires fixing the streets downtown, let's do that. If it requires redoing the sewers downtown, I'm all behind that. If it requires other utilities, I will do what I can to help. But to get behind this hotel right now when we're having struggling hotels within our city boundaries makes no sense to me. Thanks. I will vote no.
Okay. Again, just to clarify, at least I have, in all the meetings that I've gone to when I worked with the International City County Management Association back in the late 80s, the people or mayors or county board members that I've talked to or mayors throughout the country, real estate investors, developers, National League of Cities, and then we just went to the Illinois Municipal League in this fall. I've never heard anybody say, I came there because they had nice sewers and streets. Right? And that what we're doing here, though, let's be clear, we're not talking about putting any money that we're currently getting in our current budget. This is but for this project, there would be no revenues. Right now, we're not getting any hotel motel taxes on that site. Right now, I think our net was something like $4,000 and some dollars to the city for property taxes on the whole site. If we have the largest investment in 2 generations in our downtown, this is what Greg Coos said that this would be since the 1940s, $53 million of private investment on this site. And we have 350 parking spaces, and we get more gigs in the Coliseum. Again, as Alderwoman Schmidt said, I absolutely agree. We're on the brink of a tipping point. Again, if Normal took that approach, said, let's just sit back and have good streets, you'd still have an EPA Superfund waste site in Uptown Normal. You'd have vacant buildings, you'd have vacant lots, and now it's an engine of economic growth. And they've had to put more skin in the game that we're going to have to put in here. We're not putting any upfront money in this. So anyway, that's everybody knows where I stand. I just wanted to clarify that. Alderwoman Howman and Black, and then I think we'll vote.
Thank you. Yes, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need TIFs and inducements, but we do not live in perfect. We have a frequent contributor to public comment that relates what his granddaddy told him growing up, and I'm going to just relate something that my mom didn't actually say, but inferred, and that is when we moved, and we moved several times when I was a kid, she did not look at the streets and the gutters and say, oh, aren't those pretty? She looked at the schools, and that's the first thing she had the realtor do. This was long before the internet. She would research the schools, and she would tell Jim's counterpart, I want to look at homes in this school district. And she was very adamant about that. And after that, it was, let's check out the library, let's check out the zoo, let's check out the theaters, the parks. And I appreciate what Donna mentioned earlier today about needs and wants versus discretionary and non-discretionary. What's a need for me is a want for somebody else. And so I think we need to be looking long-term, and long-term, one of our strategies was to redevelop downtown, and I believe that this supports what our strategy has been. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Black?
Thank you. And I would just add it, and not to go on and on. There's lots of things that we can do at the same time. And on Saturday, we discussed Streets 2.0 to look at bonding for infrastructure, and then we're thinking about complete streets, looking under the road too, so we're not resurfacing a road that we're going to have to tear up to fix the sewer at some point in the near future. So to me, that we are handling the infrastructure piece, and we are doing what we can to address that on the long term. I know some people would disagree about how we finance it. And that's a conversation that we can have. But to me, this is a project that is also going to help us in the long term. And the future is always better than the past. And this, to me, is a smart, reasonable investment in our future. And I agree there has to be a balance in between, wants and needs and how much money we're putting in for these types of projects. And I think this is a very reasonable proposal and a very reasonable way of going about the process of looking at this project. And I think many people in Bloomington agree. I don't think we're ever going to get 100% agreement on everything. I mean, the folks will come here and express their concerns about things. We could come back and say, we fixed all the taxes and we fixed all the potholes, and they'd still find something to complain complain about. So, I think that it's the part of the process and the discussion to me that's the key piece here. And what's in front of me looks good at its face value. We've asked staff to look into it with a fine-tooth comb, and I'm looking forward to the process. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this point, an aye vote is in favor of the motion that was made and seconded. A nay, of course, is in opposition. The motion carries 8-1. Madam Clerk, there's one nay to announce.
Alderman Lauer.
Okay. And Austin, you may as well stick around.
Sure.
We've got Economic Development 3.0 tonight. Consideration of an ordinance authorizing a redevelopment agreement between the City of Bloomington and BT LLC for the purpose of redevelopment of Colonial Plaza Shopping Center. And we have a brief presentation again, and then we will ask for a motion and discussion.
Well, as you may recall, the Kmart store that anchored the Colonial Plaza Shopping Center closed, I believe it was in January of 2015. That was kind of sudden news for everyone, and including the owner of the property, BT Bloomington, and the developer, the owner, approached the city and made a couple of proposals and proposed the potential to bring in Dick's Sporting Goods to that site. But because of the age of the structure, there was a considerable gap that he identified in the project budget, and so in order to make that project feasible, there was a request for municipal assistance. Today, the City Council, over the preceding months, staff negotiated terms of a redevelopment agreement, and then on August 24th, 2015, the City Council approved an inducement resolution similar to what you just approved tonight for the front and center block. We approved an inducement resolution to reaffirm the city's support for the redevelopment of the Colonial Plaza Shopping Center. As you can see, the developer has gone ahead and secured Dick's Sporting Goods to take 50,000 square feet of the former 88,000 square foot Kmart store, and also has secured Home Goods, Five Below, and Carter's Oshkosh B'gosh to take the remaining spaces. Bringing in Dick's to Colonial Plaza will become the new anchor for that center. Most national retailers like to be by other retailers that bring in and attract similar clientele, and so by bringing in Dick's also brings in these other great retailers that'll drive more traffic to the rest of the center and assist with the leasing of the rest of the vacant spaces in the shopping center, and also drive business to other businesses in the general vicinity. One of the major cost factors in redeveloping this building was, of course, the need for a completely new facade and a new roof and a new heating and air conditioning system, but also the need to configure the building and provide loading docks for the Dick's Sporting Goods store and also for some of the other tenants in the building. And so as you can see in this schematic, how the former one large space will be broken up into 4 smaller spaces, and that 2 of those will be serviced by loading docks and the other 2 will be serviced by loading doors on the side. Another great part of this development is the developer is formed a collaborative agreement with an adjacent property owner, the Empire Plaza strip mall, that is also largely vacant. The BT Bloomington will resurface, as you can see in this area here, that parking lot there, and put in new landscaping and new concrete medians, and basically remove the barrier that had separated these 2 properties in the past. That will provide more parking closer to the door for these stores here, but also provide a better image and better parking for this separately owned, largely vacant strip center. The redevelopment agreement that is before you tonight has been negotiated between staff and with the assistance of Kathy Field-Orr, our TIF attorney, and also the developer. Just to touch on a few highlights of the agreement, it would basically be considered what's termed as a pay-as-you-go rebate agreement. We'll be rebating 1/3 of the sales tax generated only by the new to the city retailers that locate in the center for 10 years, capped at $2.19 million. The total incentive is capped at $4 million, and requires a minimum investment of at least $10 million. So there are certain, the redevelopment agreement has been structured in such a way as to protect the city in the event that the total redevelopment project is less than $10 million, then the city would only rebate 36.52% of the actual amount of the investment. So again, by being very careful in crafting it, in the way that it is worded, we're not over incentivizing the developer, we're only providing the original incentive that was originally requested. Additionally, the incentive will be backed solely from the sales tax revenue and property tax revenue that will be generated on this property. No other city funds are at risk or exposed as part of the redevelopment of this property. Again, there will also be property tax rebates through the TIF district that was recently created that includes this property. The developer will still need to pay the full amount of his property tax that results from the increase in the assessed value of the property, and the city will rebate 75% of that new increment for up to 20 years or until the $4 million cap is reached, whichever is less. Again, this is a pay-as-you-go rebate. It's a very low risk to the city, high benefit potential to the city to see that this shopping center is re-tenanted with some really high-performing retailers. Most vacant Kmarts that you see out there are unfortunately sit vacant for many years or are re-tenanted with very low-performing retailers that have very low expectations for a very old building. But as you can see, we have some really great retailers that are kind of going to come in and really see something positive happen here. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Austin. And the other thing, of course, that's the first thing if you get off of Bloomington's airport. Welcome to Bloomington. Here's a dilapidated mall.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, questions, Alderman Fruin and Painter. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's what I wanted to move
I
on.
apologize. Alderwoman Painter.
I'd like to move to authorize the redevelopment agreement between the City of Bloomington and BT Bloomington LLC.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. And now we'll move to Alderman Fruin.
Just a couple quick comments. I find it very interesting that we have agreement. The strip mall, what do we refer to that as? The
Colonial Plaza?
Colonial Plaza.
No, the other
Empire Plaza.
Empire Plaza.
Yes.
I find it very interesting that finally we can get agreement between Colonial and Empire to take out that curb, because years ago that didn't exist, and I don't know how long it's been there, 5 or 10 years, but we put up this barrier with curb, and they put some fair amount of landscaping in there. It's kind of like your court and our court, and it just doesn't speak well to collaborative shopping, so it's good to see that. And maybe a discussion for another day, but at some time maybe David or somebody give us an update on Riley Drive or whatever those streets are that run right behind this development. I know we've had some issues in the past. I think that's been cleaned up quite a bit by the police department, and so I just don't know. I like a little more another night, a little bit of discussion about security with all the money that's being invested in there and so forth. So again, standalone project. Seems like it's a very positive opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. Alderwoman Painter.
Supportive of this. It will stop the dilapidation of the area and the decrease of the tax base. I understand that there are people that are opposed to TIFs, but incentivizing businesses these days is pretty much the way of the world unless you have some really hot property that people just can't wait to get a piece of. And I'm afraid this property is not anything like that. I see no downside to this, and I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Okay. I think it's time to vote. Okay. The motion carries 8-1. There's one nay to announce, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Lauer.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Austin.
Thank you.
Okay. We move right along to a consideration of a resolution authorizing the submittal of the multi-year general architectural engineering and land services agreement. Actually, before we do the presentation, did you want to recuse
Yeah, I'll be
yourself?
recusing myself on this vote, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Rasmussen, you'll go first, and then I will entertain a motion.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. This is the multi-year general architecture, engineering, and land services agreement, and that's a little difficult, and so we kind of call it the umbrella contract. And what happens is, as you know, when we normally have a project, we send out a request for proposal, and we take the lowest responsible bid. On the other hand, if it's for professional services, what we do is we go out with a request for qualifications. And then when we find the people who have the qualifications that we most prefer, then we enter into discussions about what the cost of that project and the details of it should be. The difficulty with that is that when we do that for many small projects, we spend a lot of staff time and a lot of the firm's time going through this request for qualifications. So what we have done here is we've done one large request for qualifications where we've got all of the different firms that do architectural, engineering, and land services agreement. And then what we've done by identifying all of these people up front, we can go to any one of them when we have a smaller routine project, and we can avoid going through the request for qualification project each time. That saves a great deal of staff time, and it also saves money, because when we have firms go through many of these requests for qualifications, and even though they sometimes are successful, many times they go through the process and they're not successful. And so what happens is they have to recoup the cost of their time and effort, and we see that comes back to us in the cost of higher cost per hours with the successful contract. So by doing a umbrella contract, what we can then do is save the staff time and the firm's time in not doing multiple presentations during the request for qualifications, and we can save money because they don't have to keep doing these each time. So what we see here is a large umbrella contract that will give us the firms that we can contact each time when we have these small and routine processes. Now, I will say, however, that this hasn't been without some controversy, and we do have some people who have come back to us and have had some objections with this process. I have reached out to them and will arrange a meeting with them in the coming days so that we can go through the process with them and explain to them exactly how that was done and how we arrived at that, and we will show them all of that. We may not get agreement with everyone, but at least we'll explain to them so they'll all understand how the process worked. We've done this correctly in accordance with the law, however, and we've arrived at the list of potential firms that you see listed here in your agenda. I'd like to now ask Bob Yale, our water director, to come up and give you a quick run-through on how that process worked. He was the chairman of the selection committee that went through this rather lengthy process. Bob?
Thank you, Steve. Good evening. Actually, I'll clarify. I wasn't the chairman. I just volunteered to come present tonight. And I'll start with, here in a second. Austin, you did so good up here. Here we go. Just want to note that I volunteered to present this, but it's a multi-departmental project that we undertook. I've had the pleasure of working for the city for about 2.5 years. And one of the first things I realized is that there's a amazing number of projects and priorities for staff to work through. I also realized that staff is very dedicated, and staff always looks for ways to not only maximize what we get out of the taxpayers' money, but also a way we can be more efficient with our own time. We didn't invent the process that we're bringing to you tonight. We always look for other things out there, and we kind of resurrected what other communities and agencies are doing to put this together. With that, I'm going to jump through some of the details. And as Steve mentioned, in some cases, the law, both federal and state, requires us to solicit professional services based on qualifications based. Essentially what it says is, if you're going to engage an architect, engineer, or surveyor, and you're going to receive federal, state monies, loans, or grants, you have to follow this process. It's not a cost basis selection. It's based on qualifications. And those are just excerpts up there. I don't expect anybody to read it, but of what guides us in that regard. As Steve said, there's some opportunities to utilize firms outside of this selection process. I would qualify those as larger, more complex projects with specific criteria that maybe the firms on this list aren't as well versed to do. So this doesn't require us to use the firms on the list. It just gives us the ability to use these firms. This process was used for this, what we deem the umbrella or architectural engineering surveyor services, is what we would do on any individual project as well. It's guided by the law, and I'll spend 2 minutes on this. We request qualifications. We give the professional service firms an outline of what minimally they should submit. We let them know what the evaluation criteria are up front, so when they submit their packages, we evaluate those firms based on those criteria. Those are in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Both commitments, experience, project quality, budget and time, very important, as well as a project approach. Sometimes in generalities with this, with no specific project, just gives us a feel of how they would approach a project, ensuring that they're using their time and our tax dollars efficiently and effectively, that they're managing the projects for us. We shortlist, per se, those firms based on the criteria, reviewing the qualifications. In this case, we had 7 categories, from architectural, structural, utilities, pavements, traffic control and signals, land surveying, and environmental, which is in the bottom right, which I know you can't read, but hopefully you've seen that in the council packet. From that point, we narrow it down. We ask those firms to come in and interview. We give everybody the same time allotment. We give everybody the same direction that, again, we're going to base what they present on those evaluation criteria. We rank them at the end of that. And I should say that the selection committee was comprised of facilities. They have in mind projects for administration, for police, for fire, for others. Also have some thoughts in mind for Parks and Rec. Also, Public Works Engineering is on the committee, and Water was on the committee. So and also the procurement manager was also on the committee. So we represented the whole entire aspect. Benefits, if we touched on increased efficiencies, that was the first point I mentioned, looking to find some way to increase our efficiencies, which Steve mentioned, as well as the consultants' efficiencies as well. Multi-departmental utilization, we envision this being used across the city, whether it's for the departments I just mentioned or even economic development. Austin got to spend a lot of time up here today. Heard questions about environmental. Well, doesn't preclude now Austin might have a listing of firms that might be able to assist him in some of his economic development endeavors as well. Just utilization, where do we envision this? This is simply a listing of all the master plans that have been brought before you in the past. No specific projects on this slide other than the need is overwhelming and anything we can do to help advance those needs. Obviously, some of those will be in the budget that they're presented for FY17 and beyond. And if I go the right direction, some we pulled out just as examples: City Hall Annex demolition, police facilities improvements, groundwater sourcing, also potential for Parks and Rec and Miller Park concession, and various intersection design studies for Public Works Engineering. So you can see the gamut spreads, and those are all ones that we recently had discussions about how we might utilize this in the short term to advance the projects to go forward. And I've shown a lot of bullet points, so I just want to end with a few pictures. Streets, you've probably seen these before. Sorry, Jim, if you didn't want to see that one. Sewers, we've talked a lot about tonight. The top left and the bottom center of the police range, understand there's a hole between in the roof between the trees up there, causing mold and remediation. The top right is the Public Works facility that got fixed recently. This is the downstream of the spillway at Lake Bloomington. You can see obviously there's some need there. So these are just examples of how we might utilize this in the future, near future. With that, I'll open up to any questions.
Okay. Questions? If not, is there, oh, excuse me, yeah. Alderman Lauer, I'm sorry.
Okay,
You were
just so we're clear, can you show me how we can be sure that we're getting the most competitive bid? Even though I realize you're trying to use a lot of small projects, but how large a project would we be including in these?
Well, I think the criteria we're looking at is anything that doesn't have a component that's very complex, very large. The Fox Creek Road Bridge project that I know Jim's coming up behind me, would presume that this would fall outside the realm of this here. We would do a separate RFQ for projects such as that, solicit specific requests for qualification on that, and select it through that method.
Thank you. Questions, Alderman Sage?
Yeah, just wanted to say, yeah, thank you, because this is a different approach for us to use, and even I understand the benefits of it, right?
Thank you.
And with the savings in the front end of the process with the staff time, and so that's innovative kind of thinking that I want to encourage. So my hats off to David and Steve and the directors and staff that work with that.
Thank you. I'll pass that on for sure.
Question or motion?
Question.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I guess looking at the list of the firms here, and some of them are not in the community. I know we passed that local preference ordinance.
Right.
How would this process interact with that ordinance?
The local, and Jeff, you can chime in if you like, the local preference stands alone outside of the request for qualifications-based selection. It doesn't influence that at all. It's actually federal and legal requirements require us not to take that into consideration, to simply use those criteria for evaluation, and the ones that I listed a little bit earlier.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Alderman Schmidt?
Yes, I'm looking at the list of the selected firms and the different categories for which they've been qualified. And I think I heard Mr. Rasmussen say that you have some firms that maybe, I'm kind of guessing, think that maybe they could tick off more boxes than we've given them or something, and you're going to engage in conversation with them. So are you just assuming that none of that will change as a result of further conversation, or how does that sync up with the process that you've already employed?
Yes. The answer to that question is we do not believe that will change because we have gone through that process in great detail. We've analyzed the qualification of the firms, and we believe that that will stay, and we have good reasons for not having selected the people that we selected. In every selection process, there are people that are selected and some that aren't, and the ones that aren't generally are not happy with it, but we will give the full explanation to them and let them know all the information that was involved. And at this time, we do not believe that that will change. I would also like to, though, clarify one thing that the council did ask, and that was, are we bound by this list? And the answer is no. If we have another project, even if it's a small project, but it is of a complex nature, and we think that we may want to go out for qualifications, we can go out for an RFQ. We're not bound to this if we see that it would be necessary at some time.
Question or motion?
Okay, no, that addresses my question. Actually, I was going to ask you about that. But are you going to review this process every so often to make sure that you keep maybe refreshing it?
Yes, what's in front of you at this point is a multi-year is 3 years with the option to renew it for two additional times for 1 year each. Gives the opportunity to see if the right mix and expertise is available to us for those projects, and we come back and review that in the near future.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Howman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Miller-Wampoi. Any further discussion? Okay. I vote, of course, is in favor. Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay. The motion carries 8-0. No nays to announce, Madam Clerk. And I wonder if someone could get Alderwoman Burgess, please. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Mr. Karch, you've got some information here on the Fox Creek Bridge replacement at the Union Pacific Railroad. So we have, again, here a brief presentation, and then I will ask for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. So tonight before you is a touch point on a project. It's important whenever we have these large multi-year projects, there's going to be some different times when we come back to the council for some decisions. And tonight is one of those on a project we've been working on for multiple years. The reason, sometimes you wonder, like projects can take a long time. With the Fox Creek Bridge project, since I started at the City of Bloomington, has been needed. And so as we've continued on through the years, we look at this quarter corridor we mentioned even in the legislative agenda earlier tonight when we spoke with legislators on key projects for the city. This project tonight is one of them. The other one we've spoken about is the Hamilton Road, Bund to Commerce. And then the other project is this Fox Creek Bike to Danbury, which includes a bridge and other two-lane roads that need to be upgraded to match the roads on either side of it. Whenever I started the city, this was kind of what we got to see. There were people walking along this bridge you can see up on the screen. It's a rural bridge crossing a railroad, really no other good way to traverse it. What you can't see is on either side of that there's a sheer drop, of tens of feet that you just can't. I've actually walked it because we did the water main on one side that's attached to the bridge, all of that. So it's really a project that is very much needed for the residential properties on the west side of this. And so this is, everybody understands this is a much needed project. Tonight before you, we're just asking for concurrence through this process on an alternate so that we can continue with pedestrian accommodations. That's an important piece of it. You have a bike trail, the Constitution Trail, which is on either side of this project. We need to connect and sync that up. It's on the north side. And so what we looked at is, well first actually let me back up and talk about one other facet. One facet for us is this span, this bridging the railroad. Whenever we talk about that, look up on the screen for a second. What we've got right now is we've got a 3-span bridge. When you have a 3-span bridge, it actually is significantly more expensive than a 1-span bridge because of the pier construction and what you have to do. That it can add up to $1 million extra to this project if we have to accommodate these extra spans for the railroad. Currently, we're in negotiations with the Illinois Commerce Commission and Union Pacific Railroad to try to allow us to do a single span. We don't believe it affects the safety. We believe it meets their criteria, but it is different than what's currently there. So we are working with them. We wanted to make sure we brought this to the council. We're moving forward with this project, but this is a key thing that if there are issues, we'll come back to the council for assistance should we find that we're not able to get this done with the Illinois Commerce Commission. The next facet, though, is, again, pedestrian accommodation. These pictures up on the screen are if you were on the west side of the bridge looking to the east. And so what we're asking for is just your concurrence. We had looked at a couple different designs, brought them to public meetings and the like, and the safest and best way to get through here and the most affordable is attaching it to the bridge. It's a couple $100,000 cheaper. It prevents us from having to stage the construction so that people have to be routed over along Oakland Avenue, and so you can actually keep the road open throughout the whole process. Significantly better from an access standpoint for our residences, and it's a savings for money. In addition, just having a small short gap in here would actually also cause some maintenance issues. So we're taking this recommendation to you for this alternate construction, and then with that being said, at this point, just open this up for questions. We're asking for your approval and concurrence for us to move forward.
Alderman Sage.
Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion, and then following a second, I'd like to share a few comments as well.
I'd like to make second. Okay. Yeah. So motion made by Alderman Sage, second by Alderman Lauer, and you've got the floor.
Thank you. A couple of quick comments. Have to first start off with saying thank you to staff for all the work that's been put into this. I mean, when we say it's been a multi-year effort, that is certainly not an exaggeration. And that culminated, I know, with a tremendous neighborhood meeting that we had. David was there, Kevin Cothe, our city engineer, Ryan Otto, the project engineer, members of the design firm were there. So there's been a real consensus building with the neighborhood on this. And so again, let me say again, thank you for the efforts. These are the kinds of hours that just simply go unseen by the public and by some of us on the council on projects kind of outside of our scope. The other point I want to emphasize, and you alluded to it, Jim, in your comments with the photograph, is this is an infrastructure project, but it's almost just as much a public safety project, because one of the things I hear constantly from drivers in Southwest Bloomington is the potential situations where they get into contention with pedestrians walking back and forth across that bridge, and many times those pedestrians are young people, teenagers, walking back and forth to the Casey's and taking some brothers and sisters with them. so there's a tremendous amount of pedestrian traffic there. So again, I want to say thanks and then also encourage my fellow aldermen to recognize that there's just a very significant public safety aspect above and beyond the infrastructure project associated here. So thank you, Jim.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to also reiterate that this is a barrier to economic development for that area of town, and so I certainly support that. And having foot traffic across there, it is a significant safety concern. I don't know whether we've got any statistics in terms of whether we've had accidents there or not, but I'm sure that that's going to alleviate an awful lot of concern. And so I certainly support that. Thanks.
Okay. At this point then, unless there are further comments, an aye vote is in favor of the resolution. Oh, okay. There we go. Motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much. We move right along to the city manager's discussion, and you have a Coliseum update for us. Mr. Hales.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tonight, I'd like to just give you an update on our ongoing efforts to prepare for and only to bring to the council a recommendation of a management firm to become the second only manager of the Coliseum owned by the city of Bloomington, currently named the U.S. Cellular Coliseum. As you know, it was just a week or so ago that I got a call from John Butler, president of the Central Illinois Arena Management Company, and he informed me that his firm had decided that they were no longer interested in pursuing extending or being open to an extension of the current contract with the Coliseum. That particular decision brought to the completion of nearly 10 years of continued operation and management of this city-owned facility, billed at the approximate cost of $30 million. And I think it's important to point out that during the last 10 years, the regional economic impact of this facility has totaled in excess of $120 million. It's not only been a major economic driver for the downtown, it has led to increases of revenue both in hotel motel taxes, in food and beverage sales, in restaurant sales, and there's been many other parties in the downtown that has benefited. The Downtown Coliseum has created, and through the auspices of Siam, their niche has been country music, concert, events and venues that really have been a hallmark and have been major revenue generators for us. As I continue to see and watch the amount of events at our particular venue compared with others in the Central Illinois arena, this is a very busy. In fact, it has been recognized as being one of the most profitable from a gross sales venues in our particular size as many others. So it's, but nevertheless, with the passing of, or hitting a milestone of this nature, as both the mayor and I have indicated, new opportunities and new doors are opening to what lies ahead of us for the next 10 years. And even though there's a lot of very extensive staff work currently underway, I do want to kind of share with you, well, what is the process going forward? First, let me kind of back up and say that even the current discussion of the next successor party that ultimately will bring to you for your recommendation and approval started clear last year. I want to pay special recognition and appreciation to Jeff Juergens, our city attorney, Greg Mordock of his staff. There was considerable research that went into trying to determine what would the major terms and conditions of the next Coliseum management contract look at. One of the overriding principles that we had is, what is the current industry standard? Because there's a lot of entities, or there's literally hundreds and hundreds of public arenas, facilities like this throughout the nation. There isn't necessarily as many companies that are out there managing these type of facilities. What we had was a very unique, specially designed, drafted, negotiated contract for our facility. However, it was not necessarily representative of what you would find in many of these other venues that are managed by some of the few tried, tested, very experienced venue management firms. With the help of Jeff and Greg and others, what we did is we put together a model of a new potential management agreement that would be emulate some of not only industry standards but best practices that would help provide for not only a much more reasonable cost sharing and revenue sharing between what the building could generate. It would put in place not only new performance standards but opportunities for the manager to not only be incentivized to maximize the gross sales at this particular building, but also provide for reasonable compensation, but with the city as the owner of that building taking an even greater share of the net profits to be generated at this particular Coliseum. I think it was because of that approach and because what we were looking at is some very significant changes that ultimately there was a decision made by Siam that they wanted to pursue other opportunities. We certainly appreciate and thank them for their service, but we are very much excited about and see some great opportunities going forward as we approach and we bring to you and begin to vet possible companies. Currently, our efforts are on a parallel track in multiple areas. I've reached out and are continuing to reach out together with staff to the many tenants, those who have booked the Coliseum, not only now but in the future, to make and to assure them that they will continue to be provided with an outstanding experience at our Coliseum, and that we are working in concert with all the officials of Siam to help ensure that this occurs and that there won't be anything that any of the individuals that will be coming to our Coliseum, they will not see any significant drop in any of the services and the experiences they have come to expect when they have been at our Coliseum. We're working to help make sure some of our staff is very much on top of what these events and venues are expecting, to become aware of that. There's a constant effort to look at all the contracts that previously have been signed between Siam and these event sponsors, promoters, and others to ultimately look for a way to transfer, to have those assigned over to the city during this interim period. We're also trying to make sure, too, that there is no loss of significant opportunities to bring additional events here in the future. And I don't want to understate, I think, the need to do that, continue to reinforce to the many people that have already booked shows, booked events, that is going to be the case. Because what we have heard that sometimes when the news comes about that there's a change in management, because there is a lot of competition out there, a lot of other venues, they certainly are looking for opportunities to come in and maybe see if they can't take advantage of some of these. But we're reaching out, and I think in the many phone calls I have made and others have made, we're reassuring people that they can expect, again, just outstanding service going forward. I think it's important to point out that as we go forward, we are trying to look at those management companies that have extensive experience in and have excelled in the management of these public arenas. We're continuing to vet those companies both by phone, in person, and we will continue that over the next several weeks. April 1st is the targeted deadline when basically Siam's contract and contract requirements will come to an end. We are exploring with them a possible short-term extension to this contract as we continue to vet companies and ultimately bring what we think will be ultimately the recommended party to bring them to the council for your consideration. We're also looking at how we can make sure, with input from many other sources nationally, how we can make sure that these parties we're talking to, we can fully vet their experience, their track record with many other venues, and unfortunately, this is going to take some time, but we're trying to do that in a very expeditious manner. I think it's very important that we, and I think because of the excellent work done by Jeff Jurgens and his party, many of the new terms and conditions we're looking at and proposing, again, are already out there, and these many of these companies are familiar with them. This is kind of the type of business model they are looking towards, and so I think it's very much helping us. I want to say, too, that we're not closing the door to other potential opportunities, too. In fact, we had one party in town today, as we were talking about, even different models of management of a venue, and it's just kind of amazing some of the information we're having being provided to them. As you know, one of the most significant issues we're also dealing with is 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, when the city built this facility, they made a requirement that SIAM, and through their affiliate, BMI Concessions, spend up to $1 million to purchase and to install a lot of concession equipment in this building. So we're in the process of negotiating with SIAM how that we deal with the fact that these are privately owned fixtures and equipment in the building, and that is one thing that we're also trying to work through, which is taking considerable time and effort. And I just want to go back again to the fact that I think this provides us with a great opportunity to really enter the next phase and to even increase our hopes, our goals for the future, for the overall financial viability of this Coliseum. I think it has been a building, an edifice well taken care of. With your approval, we've made major upgrades to the video screens and systems that many of our tenants have continued to express appreciation for that investment in new technology to help make sure that this building continues to be very competitive for future events. Once again, a lot of this effort is behind the scenes in private meetings, but what we want to do is assure you that our senior management staff and many members of the staff are working very long hours making sure that we can continue to help ensure that we bring to you some outstanding and I think some transformative changes in how we look at maximizing this particular asset, not only for our downtown, but also with the potential connection and the synergistic experience that could come as it ties into a downtown hotel, conference center, and so forth. Again, that's just kind of an update. That's the process we're undergoing. We do anticipate coming back to you during one or both of our upcoming meetings this month with some more formal information as we continue with these negotiations, the research, and the meetings with the various parties. And at this point in time, both myself and Jeff Jurgens, City Attorney, would be happy to respond to any high-level questions you might have of this process and what we're trying to do to move through this transition from SIAM to a new management team. So any questions you might have,
thank you for the
would be
update,
happy
the
to
detailed
respond
update.
to
Any
those.
questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Given the hour, I'll have one very quick update, just a thank you to Alderman Fruin, and I want to thank you and Alderwoman Burgess, yeah, she's there, for coming on the One Voice. We had several asks STEM education asks, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics ask. We had mental health, and then the Hamilton Road Tiger extension. Clearly, we want to speak with one voice and strengthen our collaborative relations with our intergovernmental partners. So thank you both for that. I very much appreciate it. At this point, aldermanic comments, just so that we all know we do need an executive session we're staying for. Alderwoman Howman and Schmidt.
Thanks. Are you going to talk about harvest? About what? Harvest? No. No. Okay. First, I was disappointed that there were only 2 residents who attended our budget workshop on Saturday, including Mr. Lambert. There was a lot of good information shared, and with all the comments we receive about how we don't spend our money properly, et cetera, I think that folks could have benefited from the exchange that we had and the information that the department heads brought to us. Yesterday, Alderwoman Schmidt, Painter, and Mayor Renner and I went to a church service at Harvest Church, and this is the second year in a row I've been, and it's just a very uplifting service. And I was talking with one of the congregants after the service, and they said, well, don't other churches do this? I went, not that I'm aware of. You're the only church in the city that has a special service once a year for community elected officials and staff. So it was pretty cool. And I would like to ask that we, again, consider moving public comment to after awards and recognition so that folks that are here for the awards don't sit for, tonight it was 35 minutes, listening to public comment. They're certainly welcome to if they want to, but that would...
And there's nothing, right, Jeff, there's nothing I can... We do... Oh, we do have to write an ordinance change. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
And I've only heard positive comments in the community about how our police worked to help keep the candidates rally yesterday at the airport civil. So thank you to Chief Hefner and
That's right.
I think and Fire Chief Moore and all the folks that helped to do that. I think it made our community look like a good community. Thanks.
Alderwoman Schmidt, then Black.
We have a lingering item that we need to talk about as a council, and that's this agenda item request form. And given the lateness of the hour, I'm wondering if maybe we would be better off taking up to, but no more than 10 minutes at committee of the whole. If there's time to do that, actually have a conversation about it and decide, we're going to move ahead or forget about it or what. So I didn't check with my 2 buds on this. Is this good with Mboka and Scott?
Scott Black approved.
All right, yeah, 3 thumbs up for that. So if that's okay, maybe we can put it on our next committee of the whole.
Done, yeah. Alderman Black.
Vote tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Now, at this point, I need a motion to go into executive session, and then we go into the fishbowl. Is there a motion to go into executive session for personnel reasons?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Howman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Painter. And we do need a roll call on that, though, don't we, Madam Clerk? Or can I do it on the roll call? Okay. And no action will be taken after the work. We're going to work session and then we're adjourning, so everyone knows. Excuse me. Yeah, closed session. Alderwoman Painter.
Alderman Fruin. Alderman Fruin.
Alderman Fruin. Executive session. Yeah.
Alderman Lauer.
Yes.
Alderman Sage.
Yes.
Alderman Burgess.
Yes.
Alderman Longway.
Yes.
Alderman Painter.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Black.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman Black.
Yes.
Alderman Harmon.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to executive session then. Oh, thank you. Oh, I would have forgotten. Man, I got all kinds of stuff here. Yeah, I think we have to.